I encourage you, if you're trying to move along, to make sure you know the alphabet, make sure you know the vowels and the diphthongs, make sure you know the endings on the verbs, and tonight we're going to begin looking at the nouns. If you have a handout, I want us to run through, first of all, the vocabulary words. And one of the reasons we're going to do this in the beginning is because all of these are nouns. All of these vocabulary words are nouns. And I'll explain a little bit more about the endings because, again, just as it is with the verbs, the ending is very, very important that you are able to get the distinctions on the endings because, again, the endings tell us a great deal about a particular word. And I'll try to get to more of that a little bit later on. You'll notice that on nearly all of these on your vocabulary list, not every one, but nearly all of them, they have the same ending. And again, we'll explain more about that. The first word is the word angelos. And I'd like to ask you to repeat the word with me. Angelos. Now you'll notice that it looks like agalos. But when there are two gammas together in a word such as this, it is pronounced almost with an N sound. Angelos. Angelos. And so what is the word angelos? What is the English word for angelos?
Angel or messenger.
All right. Messenger, literally messenger, but often, most often in our Bibles, translated angel, which is a transliteration. And we'll come back to transliterations a little bit later on. Then we have the word agros. Agros. Anybody know what agros is? Anything? Does that sound like anything to you? Yes, ma'am?
Field.
Field. Agros is field. Does that sound like field?
Agriculture.
No, it does not. But it sounds like agriculture or agrarian. And so agros is the word from which we get our word agrarian or agriculture. So let's repeat it. Agros. Agros, okay. Next is adelphos. Everybody say adelphos. Adelphos, and the word adelphos is brother. Brother. Also, it is translated fellow believer. The word Philadelphia. Philadelphia. Phileo is what? Love. And then you have Adelphia is brother. So you have the city of brotherly love. Philadelphia.
Wait, you said it was brother or fellow believer?
Fellow believer. Fellow believer. So Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. All right, the next word on your list is hamartolos. Hamartolos. Everyone say hamartolos. Hamartolos. Now you can't see it, but this has the rough breathing. And if you want to write the rough breathing, just above the alpha there on hamartolos, the rough breathing looks like a backward apostrophe.
So why does it have it on that? I mean, since that one starts with a vowel, but the rest of them do too, and it's not.
Because we don't know why that's the case.
Oh, okay.
But when it's written, that's the way it's written. When they wrote it in the Greek, the smooth breathing, which is typical, of course, looks like that. The rough breathing is like this. The rough breathing always is pronounced with an H sound. So you have hamartolos.
So you just have to figure out which word.
You have to.
That.
You'll know it when you see the word because it'll have the breathing on the word.
But I mean,
it's
if
not
you were
on
to
your
write
paper.
it, you would have to.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You have to. Now it's not on your paper because I can't do that on my typewriter on my computer. All right. The word hamartolos is the word for sinner. The word for sinner. We have an English word. You might not be familiar with it, but it is called hamartiology. Hamartiology. The study of sin.
Oh, sinner.
Sinner. The study of sin. Hamartia is the word for sin. Hamartios is the sinner.
Does English spell it with an H in front of it?
Yes, ma'am. When you spell it in the English, that's correct. All right. Next we have anthropos. Anthropos. Everybody say anthropos. Anthropos is man. Probably more likely person. I think really person is probably a little bit better translation. Mankind or person. We have the word anthropology, the study of mankind. All right. Next we have apostolos. Apostolos. Everybody say apostolos. All right. What word is that? Literally messenger again, or apostle. Apostle. And that's a transliteration. Let me just take a moment here and talk about transliteration. Typically, when the Greek Bible was being translated from Greek to English, they would take a word like the word adelphos and give it an English meaning. The English meaning for adelphos is what? Brother. We just went through that one. Brother. Adelphos is brother. All right, the word, they gave it an English meaning. And typically they would take the word and translate it with a word that would give it an English meaning. Occasionally, and there's really no rhyme or reason to this, but occasionally instead of translating a word, they would do what they would call a transliteration. And they would give, instead of a corresponding English word, they would give each letter a corresponding English letter. So you have, for instance, in the word here, apostolos, instead of giving this translated a word, they translated each letter. So you have A-P-O-S-T-L-E. Now I wrote that to let you know that my writing in English is not any better than my writing in Greek, but you probably didn't know that until now. But they gave it, so we call it a transliteration. Now, that's not usually a bad thing, but sometimes translators used it in a bad way. For instance, the word baptism comes from the Greek word baptizo. But the word baptism really doesn't have a meaning to it. They should have, instead of transliterating it, they should have translated. Because in the Greek, baptizo means to immerse, or to dip, or to plunge. Well, King James came along in about, 1511? 1611? And began to come up with a great King James translation of the Bible, which, by the way, is a very good translation of the Bible. There's nothing at all wrong with the King James Bible. As a matter of fact, every one of us who are part of the church, just out of curiosity, anybody here have a copy of not the New King James Bible, but the King James Bible? How many folks have King James Bible? All right, you're a pretty unusual person if you have the King James Bible. But every one of us ought to be thankful for the King James Bible. You know why? Because tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of people became children of God by reading the King James Bible. And I'm a little bit offended when I hear people talk about the King James Bible is not a very good Bible. When I hear people criticize that.